Let's bring ESPN senior NFL insider KC Joyner into the conversation on the Boardwalk on the Hotline, and we'll start off with that very question. Philadelphia, many people still kind of think is the favorite in the NFC East, but Dallas and Washington, I would say both had surprise wins. Which team's more of a threat to Philly, Washington or Dallas?
I'd have to say, well, I mean, you can look at things like conference record, and Washington has a better record there. I did look at, so they've got a little bit of an edge there. But if I'm looking at just the personnel setups of each team, I look at Washington and say they've got a solid offense, but they got a lot of wide receiver injuries, and Alex Smith is what Alex Smith is. He can do some things in that offense, but they can't make that sort of a centric offense. Dallas has issues in its wide receiver core too, but it's got a powerhouse defense. It's got a powerhouse offensive line. It's not that far away from being the team it was a couple of years ago. They can dictate pace to you in a way that Washington can't. So I'd say Dallas is more dangerous.
They both play pretty good defense, and that's where Dallas, I think, has improved over the years. They've been a good defense. I don't want to say they're a great defense now, but they're getting there. They finally have a couple of names that stick out.
They do. I do the red, yellow, green ratings for players as far as how they, when you're looking at coverage and such. They've got some red-rated players in their coverage areas. Their rush defense has been very good this year. They've got some. I do my advanced metrics for my ESPN fantasy blocking matchups articles, and Dallas's run defense matchups or run defense numbers. They've got in good blocking rate, good blocking yards per attempt, good blocking productivity, yards before first defensive contact. I mean, this is a team that's pushing top 10 in those areas. So they're a team that can stop the run in addition to run very well. And you don't think that can win in today's NFL, but wait until November, December comes around. That trade is more viable than it will be today.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Teams that run the ball and play defense as the season gets a little later on, both these teams, that's kind of what they do best. What about when we look at these two teams in the pass game? Does one team have a pass game that's a little bit more advanced than the other? Because they still both seem pretty scaled back when it comes to that portion of the game.
Yeah, they are. And the problem for Dallas is they just don't have the weapons, period. It's not like they have players who can do well. And if you look at the vertical passing attack, I mean, I know they looked great yesterday in a lot of ways, but this is still a team that does not have vertical passing. Washington, coming into this season, over the past 2 years, they had finished tied for first in the league in vertical touchdown passes. So this is a team that will run the ball and will go vertical. They were Richardson, who posted fantastic numbers last year. I think he got a score yesterday, too, so he's really good. Crowder can be good when healthy. Doxson can be good when healthy, but their problem right now is, imagine for Washington that you would say that Jordan Reed is the healthiest player among their skill position pass catchers. You would never think you'd say that, but at this point, that's kind of how it is. He's the healthy guy, and they've got injuries elsewhere. So if they get those players healthy, they've got to tear the top off the defense group. But that they don't, when you start looking at their metrics, it does hinder them pretty significantly.
When you talk about, I know one of the metrics that you look at, and you wrote about it at ESPN.com in the Insider section, has to do with the offensive line. And when you look at particularly, Dallas, everybody talked about their offensive line over the years as one of the best in the league. But I think Washington's offensive line is pretty underrated, and that's why I like Adrian Peterson. I know a lot of people think he might be cooked, but I like him behind that line.
I do too, and Washington. It's funny that when you look at their overall grades coming into Week 6, I'll be finishing up the Week 6 grades in the next couple of days, but coming into Week 6, their overall grade in their offensive line was a B-. They ranked 17th out of 32 teams. It's not great, but that team has been playing better, and they're trending towards getting close to a top 10 pick. And actually, Dallas, their offensive line, when you look at their offensive line as a whole, like they've got an A in run blocking. You can arguably say they're the best run blocking team. Actually, Carolina's had better grades than them, but Dallas is like third in my run blocking metrics, so they're very good there. But they had a D- coming into Week 6 in pass blocking, so they actually rank overall. They rank lower than Washington in the overall offensive line grades. But I'll take it, and I'll take Dallas in the run blocking perspective. But overall, Washington may actually have a better offensive line than Dallas when you take everything into account right now.
Yeah, and then when you look at that division, Philadelphia, where do you look at their offensive line with the other two?
Easily the best. They rank fifth overall coming into this week. They're going to have much. I think they could contend for a top 3 spot once the final grades are in for this week. They were at an A- in run blocking. It's the top 10 ranking. They were at a C+ in pass blocking. They're trending upward there, and the ranking system is now going to start giving more of an emphasis on how teams are doing later in the year. Now that we've got some weeks behind us, I don't want to be putting too much of an emphasis on week one anymore. So their numbers are going to move up, and overall they've got a B-plus grade, fifth best in the league coming into week 6.
All right, KC Joyner's with us here. We're going to go through the week 6 games, get his thoughts on all of them, kind of look forward to hearing. This was a wacky week. I mean, some of these games, you just scratch your head. I was moving my girlfriend all weekend, so I didn't get to really sit down. I looked at the scores afterwards. I said, huh? What happened in week 6? So let's get the rundown from KC Joyner here. Tampa, I know you wrote about their offensive line. I said Winston throws for 395, so it wasn't just Fitzpatrick that was racking up 400-yard games, but it still wasn't good enough. Atlanta gets a win at home.
Yeah, Tampa. Well, that's why Tampa fired the defensive coordinator. The defense is that bad. They've got talent challenge issues, but they've got they're not playing well either. But the Bucs, they gave Jameis Winston the third best pass pressure rate this week, and that's again according to that ESPN Plus article I wrote for the fantasy section. But they gave him the third best pass blocking yesterday, and their run blocking, which had been atrocious this year, was exceptional yesterday. So it bodes really well for Tampa going down the road as their offense as a whole. But they don't get their defense fixed, they're not going to be any better than now right now.
All right, Pittsburgh wins at Cincinnati. Not a huge surprise. The Steelers typically win there, but we thought we liked this Cincinnati team. What happened?
What happened is that the Pittsburgh jinx got in their heads. They should have won that game. Pittsburgh did everything they could to lose that game. They didn't challenge the goal line play for it should have, they got stopped at the 1-yard line and ended up not getting a touchdown out of that. And they made a number of other coaching blunders. I mean, they're winning in spite of Tomlin's coaching ability. But when you've got Antonio Brown and you can turn slant passes 31-yard touchdowns, that's the big difference. And frankly, as far as good as Cincinnati is, they don't quite have that kind of a playmaker, even with A.J. Green.
Chargers go to Cleveland. They beat up on the Browns. I mean, I guess it's just to show that the Browns just aren't quite ready to go yet. And the Chargers now are starting to play some more consistent and better football. They almost put 40 up against a Cleveland defense that a lot of people liked.
Yeah, the Cleveland defense, that's the big thing, because since Cleveland's offense, they rank last in overall blocking. I mean, they're just not that good. I know Baker Mayfield's a big plus, and he's going to help them win some games they would have, they lost in last year's. But and so their offense is still terrible. But their defense, now that's a couple weeks, 2 out of 3 for me. They gave a bunch to Oakland, too. That defense is really not that, really very inconsistent. They've got more talent than what they show, but they don't get enough pass rush sometimes. Their coverage is shaky sometimes, so they've got to lock that down if they're going to start to be a team that people think can win more frequently.
Seattle against Oakland, that game was the London game. Typically, one of the teams doesn't feel like being in London. It was Oakland, and Oakland's been really bad this year. But Seattle, they went toe-to-toe with the Rams last week. They took care of business over there, and it looks like Seattle's got something cooking, but that Raider team's terrible.
I did my power rankings for ESPN.com's section. We're going to have the power rankings come out tomorrow. They have us all vote, and the Raiders that's the easiest pick. Besides the Rams, number one, the Raiders being the worst team in the league was easily the easiest pick. And they're just, you can pick your metric. They're terrible run blocking. They're terrible pass blocking. They're terrible throwing downfield passes. You look at the chart for how downfield Derek Carr was throwing. You look at what they call a heat chart to show where the passes are being thrown. They're all at the line of scrimmage. There's no verticality to that offense. Just an abysmal team. But Seattle, being able to do what they're doing, and they've got David Moore as an up-and-coming receiver. He could be their second-best receiver on that team pretty soon. You start putting that together, that's a team that could contend for a wild card spot.
Yeah, I mean, if they keep playing the way they've been playing, they run the ball. This one here, though, Chicago at Miami. When I saw that score, I said, what? And then I saw Osweiler 380. I said, what? So Miami goes and beats the Bears, but they do it with Brock Osweiler throwing almost for 400 yards. What happened to the Bears defense, man?
The Bears defense didn't give the kind of pass rush. Coming in that game, the Bears had a gargantuan edge run blocking wise, and they dominated in the rushing game. I know Gord had some yards too, but that Miami run blocking is just not that good. And Drake is just an embarrassment to fumble on the goal line like he did. I mean, they should be giving more carries to Gore, which is terrible for Drake, but it's what needs to be happening. But when you look at the Chicago defense, I think they have some secondary issues that they haven't resolved, and they can get a pass rush. But if your pass rush isn't getting there, you've got to still be able to stop them. And Chicago showed yesterday they can't do that, so they've got some problems.
Yeah, you start to see things like, you feel something about teams like 4 or 5 weeks in, and then you see like 6, 7 that, maybe that wasn't right. And I guess maybe the Bears were starting to see that defense wasn't this dominating type of defense. By the way, Frank Gore went up over 100 yards in that game. All right, Arizona on the road at Minnesota. Minnesota, this game was ugly for a while, 17-13 at one point. They kind of pulled away, but what are we learning about Minnesota?
Learning about Minnesota is that, as noted in that article we talked about earlier, that Minnesota's run blocking finally got in order yesterday. The run block has been atrocious this year, but they finally got some good run blocking. Part of that's Arizona, and Arizona's terrible run defense this year, but still, you've got to be able to run against a bad defense. They did it. Minnesota has some games coming up. They've got 3 of their next 5 games are against teams that are really tough run defenses, but 2 of the next 5 opponents are not. So I think the running game is going to keep going. Adam Thielen's the best receiver in the NFL right now. You start adding some of those things together, and the defense still can cover exceptionally well. Minnesota's got a formula to turn things around if they can keep Murray going.
Indianapolis goes to New York. The Jets win a game. They get to 3-3. They put up 40. What has happened to them? They look like a scrappy team was ready to fight you in that Eagle game. They've been giving up big points since then.
That's their secondary is just in horrible shape. They've got injuries all over the place. They were missing 2 safeties coming in that game. They've already got bad corners to begin with, and then they've got injuries to their secondary core as well. And that's why they have to get into shootout games. They don't have a choice. That's why Luck is going to. Luck was on pace coming into Week 6 to throw almost 800 passes this year. He may actually get close to that. He may set an NFL record for attempts in the season because the defense is so bad they can't protect it.
KC Joyner is with us here, looking at Week 6 of the NFL. Carolina goes to Washington. Many people figured, all right, Panthers, they're good. Washington, we can't believe in them. Washington wins. They get Peterson for almost 100. And what happened to the Panthers on the road in Washington?
The Panthers can't. I don't think they still have enough of a passing game. I think that's a big part of it. They've got such a good rushing attack that if you can keep the rushing attack in check and you make them throw the more than they want to, I think it's a problem for them. Funchess is a solid receiver. Funchess shouldn't be your top receiver for them. And Olsen came back yesterday. He did all right, but he didn't look like the Greg Olsen of old. So you start looking at all the elements for that team, and Carolina's the kind of team they can run the ball and dictate a certain pace to, they can win, but they didn't do that yesterday, and it's one of those games that could have gone their way if they played it a little differently, but I just think that Carolina's kind of a paper tiger.
And they'll play Philly this week. We'll have more on that game on Friday's show. KC Joyner will be back on Friday at 5 as we'll look at all the matchups to watch and the breakdown of Eagles-Panthers, who lose to Washington 23-17 this Sunday. All right, Buffalo goes to Houston. It's as simple as Peterman stinks. He's awful. He's awful. You can make an argument that Buffalo should have won that game. Houston's won 3 in a row.
Yeah, Houston, I moved them up in the top 20 in my power rankings. Houston's doing some things very well. And Buffalo just needs, if they could get even, if they can get number 20 out of 32 quarterbacks, if they get that kind of performance, this is another playoff caliber team. But they're getting number 30, number 30, and number 32 performance out of quarterbacks. You just can't win when you've got that kind of a weakness.
L.A., the Rams. I said on Friday's show, I wouldn't be surprised if Denver lost to the Jets, and then this was the game that we were all saying, how did Denver beat the Rams? We talked about it Friday, and it was there for them. So it's just one of those cases where, hey, it was a sloppy game, it was freezing cold, or did the Denver Broncos figure something out about the Rams?
McVay said that Sean McVay, the coach of the Rams, he said after the game that he didn't think he did a very good job of doing a play calling. He called himself out, said, "Look, the cold got to me." He kind of joked around, said, "Cold got to me. I really didn't think I did that good of a job of play calling." Denver's got a creative defense, and they've got some talent on defense, and they have the kind of people who can go toe-to-toe with the Rams receivers. I think they have that that caliber personnel when they play up to that talent level. So I don't think it's a formula that most teams can replicate, but if you've got a good set of cornerbacks, you can make that Rams offense do different things than they want to do.
6-0, Rams, Denver. By the way, Case Keenum stinks.
Yeah, when you're getting benched for Chad Kelly, that's not a good sign. And the thing is he has the capability to be better. But you can see why Minnesota last year, even late in the season after he was winning, like maybe we want to put Bridgewater. Everybody's like, your guys are nuts for doing that. Now, yeah, they look like they were
How
really.
How does somebody watch him and say, I got $18 million coming your way? I mean. I'm a novice, and I can figure out that Case Keenum ain't getting it done. I can't understand how John Elway makes a decision to give this guy $18 million.
Well, they wouldn't you? Don't you think he would have preferred to have Brock Osweiler yesterday?
That was pretty good. Yeah, for 380 yards, much better value there. All right, Jacksonville at Dallas. What's going on with – before we dive into this game a little deeper, what's going on with Jacksonville?
Jacksonville's run defense has never been as good as people thought it was. Their pass rush is predicated on them getting 3 games of 10 sacks last year against really bad teams. If you can pass block, I think that their pass rush is still good, but it's kind of overrated. Their offense is banged up. Bortles will make mistakes, and they're a type of team. Look, that obviously they got blown out yesterday, and they're not that bad of a team. But they're the type of team. If you get them out of the type of game they want to play, it really impacts them more than it does other teams. They really don't have a good plan B. And yesterday, Dallas plays the same sort of game that they do, but they got the lead. And once they did that, they were able to play Dallas football. I think it says a lot about Dallas too. They're a lot better team than I guess probably I'll give them credit for.
Yeah, let's stay on that one for just a second here because it's 40-7. I mean, does Jacksonville just quit, or is Dallas? I mean, where did Dallas take control of this one?
I think Jacksonville.
With the run game, I mean.
Yeah, I hesitate to say they quit either, but I think once they got down, and Jacksonville's the sort of team that likes to talk big too. So once they got down, I think Jacksonville said, "Okay, I don't think that their motivation level wasn't quite as high. I won't go as far as to say quit, but their motivation level wasn't high." And they don't like. And again, imagine Jacksonville goes down there and they see that type of game going against them. When you see, they see the type of game they like to do to other teams, that they got punched in the mouth instead. And I just think, plus they had injuries on defense too, and I think those injuries are starting to catch up.
Well, okay, so. The injuries on defense gets up, but is the lack of explosion and talent on offense also starting to be a problem for them?
It is. Yeldon's not as good as Fournette. They're a formula team. It's sort of like Dallas last year when they lose Elliott. They still had a good running game, but it's not the same caliber of running game. And they thought Keelan Cole was going to be something. He's not been that good this year. They thought Dante Moncrief could be an impact player. He's done some things well, but not that good. Same with Westbrook. You get that talent level, they should be better. I still question that last year it looked like they got past, okay, we will trust Blake Bortles, we'll go ahead and let him throw deep. Now I think Jacksonville says we really don't want Bortles to throw deep, and that makes them more one-dimensional. They just have to accept the fact that Bortles might throw some picks, and you got to go get some on defense because he can win some games for you, but only if you let him.
Yeah, because you look across the board, Dak 183, Elliott 106, Beasley 101. It wasn't like you saw the monster game from anybody. It was just a good, solid game, and then you look at the scoreboard and you say, my gosh, 40-7. What happened here? So Dallas wins, Washington wins, the NFC East, very interesting heading into this week, number 7. All right, Baltimore goes on the road. I'd like you to talk about Baltimore's defense, which maybe isn't getting a lot of attention with some great stories around the league, but Baltimore's defense is something. They shut out Tennessee, who's not a great offensive team, but they had won, 12 out of 14 at home, Tennessee, and they couldn't score. They got sacked 11 times in 27 pass attempts.
I'll be taking off of that there. An article, something I mentioned in my article, a metric I mentioned there, is that according to the ESPN Stats and Information's database, which goes back to 2001, Tennessee's sack percentage rate allowed, and how many sacks per dropback they allowed yesterday, is the highest total in the 17 years of that they have in their database. It is the highest total. No team since 2001 has allowed a higher sack percentage rate than Tennessee did yesterday. It's incredibly bad how their offensive line is playing. They ranked 31st in my metrics coming into Week 6, and I think they're going to be at the bottom. Coming into Week 6, they're going to be at the bottom once I do my post-Week 6 rankings. So they're just atrocious. But it says a lot about Baltimore, too. You got a bad offensive line, and you dominated them, and they did.
I was surprised at that one. I loved Tennessee getting points at home. I mean, I thought it would be just a kind of a bare-knuckle fight. Tennessee didn't show up for that fight, and they typically do. That was the surprising part to me. Last night's game, I mean, entertaining. Mahomes against Brady, back and forth we go. Kansas City, so many skill guys, and yet somehow New England still comes out on top.
New England had to get into a shootout game last night, but the thing is New England has an ability to get away from being able to get in that kind of contest. If they want to run the ball, they can. Kansas City, I don't think they have a choice but to get in those high-scoring games. And I think that's going to be a problem for them because their secondary's been banged up. Berry was out, and then Eric Murray, their backup was out. So we're on third-string strong safety. They've got some problems on defense they haven't fixed, and I just don't trust their ability to fix them. So I think last night was the beginning of Kansas City starting to be, instead of the powerhouse people think they are, a top 10 team, but I think it's going to be the beginning of a decline for them.
We've seen this happen. They 6-0 in the past, then they lose a bunch. I mean, this is typical Kansas City. It's amazing. Let me ask you about New England real fast. They get Edelman back. That's obviously helped them out. You see them implementing Gordon more
Yeah, they have to because Gronk is banged up, and he looked better toward the end of the game, but he disappeared in the first portion of the game. So they've got to get Gordon involved more. But if Gordon gets involved, then Hogan slots back to where he should be. You don't want Hogan being your primary vertical threat. He does really good vertical numbers over the years. You look at his vertical metrics, and they go toe-to-toe, but he's never been a guy who can post them in a large volume of passes. So if you've got Gordon there posting numbers on the other side, now you can slot Hogan in as a guy who can be your counterattack in vertical passing. Now you've got Edelman for the dink and dunk, and now you save Gronk just for the type of plays he has at the end of the game. I think that makes this offense very dangerous. And by the way, their run blocking has been superb, and it looked great last night too.
All right, we'll see where Kansas City goes from here. We'll see where New England goes. We know where they're going to land at the top of the AFC East. We'll see where they go in the AFC conference, which got more interesting. Pittsburgh won again. You've got Houston 3 in a row. You've got Baltimore playing very well. So some interesting storylines there. And, of course, the NFC has got a lot of teams. One team that was off was New Orleans, and Detroit was the other one in the NFC side of things. So tonight, one final game. Let's take another look ahead. Green Bay against San Francisco. And, obviously, this looks like a mismatch.
It does. I mean, Green Bay last week they're missing receivers, and they play. Yeah, they've got Adams is banged up, missing a couple of receivers. You look at that and go, "Wow, Aaron Rodgers has a knee. There's no way he should be able to play well." They should take clips from that game and put that into his Hall of Fame tape right now. Just go and put it in there. So whenever he retires, you've got it there and it's ready for you, because that was a Hall of Fame performance to be able to do what he did with those receivers last week. He's got the same problem this week. He's going to have banged up receivers again, and it looks like they're going to be playing a couple rookies. Who cares? Aaron Rodgers. I think he throws for 300 plus, and I think that blows San Francisco out.
You can hear that game tonight, 97.3 ESPN. The coverage begins at 8 p.m. KC Joyner will be back on Friday as we look at Eagles and Carolina Panthers, and we'll have all that coverage for you Friday show, 5 o'clock, right here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Casey, appreciate it as always, friend.
Appreciate it, man.